I'm Tom from Gordian Knot Project. Welcome to the Creative Process. Collection 4, Episode 1, Form of Nocturne. This week we'll demystify one of the classical forms, and then corrupt it, but first, coffee. I love my coffee. The chapters in this week's video are, what is a nocturne? We're also going to explain what a classical form is for any of you who don't already know. History of nocturnes. He who forgets the past is doomed to repeat it. How do you write a nocturne? The show is called The Creative Process. Making it a rock turn, baby! Yeah, we're gonna rock it out. I told you we were gonna corrupt it. What is a nocturne? First, let me explain what a classical form is. In classical music, you have your periods, which are kind of like your genres. Your romantic period, your baroque period, etc., etc., etc. I don't have wine in my hand, or I'd be able to name them all. Within those periods, you have forms. A form is sort of like a type of a song. For example, if I go to play a song for you and I tell you it's a ballad, there's certain things that you're expecting, or I wouldn't be calling it a ballad. If I tell you something's a ballad and then I play something like this, you'd be like, dude, that's not a ballad. On the other hand, if I tell you I'm gonna play a ballad and I play you something like this, you recognize it as a ballad. The forms in classical music work the same way. In order to be a sonata, or a symphony, or an opera, or a nocturne, or a concerto, or chamber music, the piece has to be written following a certain set of rules. There are certain things we expect from a form. In this video, we're going to take a look at the form known as a nocturne. According to Google, a nocturne is a short composition of a romantic or dreamy character suggestive of night, typically for piano. For once, I'm actually not going to argue with Google on a definition of a musical term. There is a first time for everything. Keep in mind, when we use the word short, we're talking in relation to other classical forms. We're not talking about short by standards of modern pop music. We're talking about short when compared to a sonata or a symphony or one of the other classical forms. Generally speaking, they're of a length somewhat typical to a folk song. Not a modern folk song, an old folk song. I would also like to point out that it says typically for piano. There have been many written over the years that are not for piano, or at least not exclusively for piano. Not have a piano in it. Some examples of classical nocturnes are the history of nocturnes. According to the research that I did, which there are links in the description below to all of my sources, the first nocturne was written by Wolfgang Amadeus Mozart. Only a pretentious person would name their child Wolfgang today. More accurately, this was the Italian word notturno, which translates into nocturne. Nocturne is actually a French word. The piece was either completed in December of 1776 or January of 1777. It is titled Notturno in D major, K286. The 19-minute piece contains several movements intended to be played at different times throughout the night during an evening party. It was common practice in Mozart's day to write a piece to be played at a soiree, and it would only be played that one time. Many of these orchestral serenades have been lost to the annals of history, as they were only played that one time and then discarded. Mozart, however, had a lot of fans. Some of these fans understood how important his works were to music and kept copies of them around. Additionally, Mozart himself would often commission them to be played multiple times because he enjoyed them himself. Do you imagine showing up to play a gig with an AC/DC cover band and it turns out you were commissioned by Angus Young? Seriously. Like, who pays musicians to play their music? These original nocturnes bore little resemblance to what we think of as a nocturne today. So enter John Field. John Field was an Irish pianist and composer who lived from 1782 to 1837. John Field is largely responsible for the construction of what we think of as a nocturne today. John Field was a musical prodigy. As a musical prodigy, he studied under another musical prodigy, Muzio Clementi. Mr. Clementi also manufactured pianos. So he taught John Field, and he taught him a lot of the basics and the classic forms and such. However, he also allowed John to find his own path with the piano. Mr. Clementi utilized John as a piano demonstrator. This is how John Field first traveled Europe, demonstrating pianos for Mr. Clementi. John Field was an early proponent of the sustain pedal. He loved using it, and that is obvious from listening to his nocturne. Through traveling Europe, John Field fell in love with and settled in Russia. He lived in Russia for many years. While residing in Russia, he fell in love with Russian folk music. Many of his nocturnes follow a form similar to Russian folk music as a result. And this is the reason why, as a general rule, nocturnes tend to be of a similar duration and form as classic folk songs. Russian folk songs often contain an ostinato bass line. Ostinato simply means obstinate or persistent. The bass line is repetitive and continues going on throughout the song over and over and over. They also typically have an A-B format or a verse, chorus, verse, bridge format where there's definitely two parts to the song. Even though this is the case, and a discerning ear can pick out the two parts within a nocturne, they are generally written as a single movement. Most nocturnes are less than 6 minutes in length and have a melody and structure more akin to a song than other classical compositions like the sonata or the symphony. This fact makes them more accessible than other classical music to the modern listener. The mood of a nocturne is usually somber and relaxing. They're intended to be listened to at night. On his deathbed, when asked by a priest what his true religion was, John Field replied, "Jesus claviciste," which translates into, "I am a pianist." No habla francés. My pronunciation might be way off. Here's how it's spelled. There's a story that I would like to believe is true, but it's probably not. That John Field met a young Chopin. John Field was very dismissive of Chopin's ability. So Freddie, much like his musical modern counterparts, who if they were dismissed by their idol, would react much the same way, took John Field's creation of the nocturne and perfected it. The student became the teacher. Frederic Chopin lived from 1810 to 1849. In his short life, he wrote an astounding number of compositions, many of them nocturnes. Most of the nocturnes that are still famous today were originally written by Chopin. There are many students of classical music who think that Chopin actually created the nocturne because of this fact. Chopin was also a music prodigy. He had his first public performance at the age of 8. At the age of 11, he played for the Russian Tsar Alexander I. Along with truly appreciating all of the classical forms, Chopin had a huge interest and love for Polish folk music, which found its way into his nocturnes, thereby cementing the link between folk music and the nocturne. It's folk turn! Some more modern examples of nocturnes are So how do you write a nocturne? Step 1, pick a key. Robotron, give me a key!
Your key is E minor.
Good choice. My key is E minor. That means my diatonic chords are E minor, F sharp diminished, G major, A minor, B minor, C major, and D major. I can work with that. Step 2, pick a mood. Robotron, give me a mood.
Your mood is pensive.
Maybe something you would listen to at the end of a day that you knew just changed the course of the rest of your life, but you weren't sure if it was a good change or a bad one. Pick a tempo. Robotron, give me a tempo.
Your tempo is 81 beats per minute.
Step 3, write the ostinato bass line. Gotta save something for the next episode. Step 4, write the basic or starting melody that will be developed throughout the piece. Also saving that for the next episode. How do you make it a rock turn? Electric guitars, distortion, and a rhythm section. Tune in next time to find out exactly how I apply that. So what do you think? Can we write a rock turn? Can we write a nocturne for a 4-piece rock band? Give me your opinion in the comments below. Don't forget to click like, subscribe, and ring my bell, baby. Until next time, stay happy, stay healthy, and God bless. Have a great week, everybody.